Hello, everyone. I'm your host, Miles, and I've got something really good for your brain today. So I hope you're staying tuned in here at X-Rays, where knowledge meets inspiration in the intricate dance of industry evolution. Now, if you've been tuning in regularly, you know we've been diving deep into a four-part series, A World Without Lawyers. And we're exploring the evolving relationship between AI and the legal profession, the risk, the rewards, and the responsibilities. Today is part three, the warnings where AI falters. And if you're wondering, yes, things are getting ethically spicy. So, to help us navigate the gray zones, the black boxes, and everything in between, we're joined once again by a powerhouse in both law and tech. She's a barrister with over 2 decades of legal excellence, a law double degree holder because one intense degree just wasn't enough, and a legal innovator with a mission to make AI work for lawyers, not instead of them. She is the co-founder and CEO of My AI Law, the legal tech firm at the forefront of building AI-powered tools and that challenge lawyers to think sharper, not just faster. So I'm happy to welcome back the ever brilliant and always insightful Laina Chan. Hi, Laina.
Thanks, Miles.
It's a pleasure to have you back on X Rays. We've missed you. And today we're getting into the heavy stuff,
Yes.
accountability, ethics, and the hidden risk when tech starts to quietly reshape legal instincts. And after a couple of podcasts with you, Lena, I learned that my AI law was designed to support, not supplant legal thinking. But is there a risk that even the most well meaning AI ends up killing lawyers over time, especially the juniors? Where does efficiency end and where might instinct start to erode?
I don't think that AI is here to kill juniors at all. I was at the Society of Construction Law conference last week, and there was fear from the junior lawyers that AI was going to replace them. But I think that comes from a fundamental misunderstanding of how AI works and what AI is there to do and what it can do to help you. So, first of all, I've said this before, AI only works on probabilities and inference. It doesn't understand the words
Ah,
that it's reading and the words it's generating. It's only working on mathematics, probabilities and inference. It's predicting what the next likely set of words is going to be if you give it, the first set of words.
mm-hmm.
In my AI, our model, we've obviously put in guardrails to help it think and reason and to extract the relevant cases, etc., and to prepare research reports for you, either light research reports or deep research reports or case summaries. But nowhere is it intended to replace the human being. We're just preparing drafts for you so that the junior lawyer can take those drafts and run with it and check all the underlying references, read the underlying cases that we have identified for you as being relevant, but it's not meant to replace your thinking and your strategic thinking. So another example is when I started, obviously I've read a lot of documents. So in one particular case I had, the solicitor had given me 50,000 documents and they hadn't done anything to cull those documents down to the relevant ones. And it took me weeks and weeks and weeks to go through 50,000 documents to identify maybe 2,000 that were relevant. But what did I actually learn from the fact that I had gone through 50,000 documents to identify 2,000 that were relevant? Because it was the 2,000 documents that were key to the case. And once you had culled the 50,000, I had to spend my time analyzing the 2,000. If AI comes along and identifies for you, pulls out of the 50,000 documents the 2,000 that are relevant, and you spend your time just focusing on the 2,000, are you a better lawyer or a worse lawyer because you haven't had the opportunity to cull the 48,000 documents out of the bundle? I don't think
Mm-hmm.
so.
Mm-hmm.
Because if you're a barrister and you're good and you have good instructing solicitors, your solicitors should hopefully just give you the 2,000 documents. And there are readers, baby barristers who come to the bar who've never been a solicitor and they've never had to do the if they are instructed by good solicitors, they don't have to go through the 50,000 documents to find those 2,000 key documents. And
Mm-hmm.
I don't think you can say that their development has been impaired simply because they haven't had the chance to search for those needles in the haystack. And
Yeah.
similarly, with our research function, we've been testing the model and it's returning the key relevant cases on the issues that we're putting to the model for it to research. And then from those cases, the lawyer has to go in and look at them as well and to check and verify that the AI research has indeed pulled the relevant cases and check that the cases say what the AI say, and then to check for the detail, etc. So can
Uh-huh.
we say that the lawyer is no longer going to be as good or as well trained because they haven't had to troll through the entire database to find those 10 or 15 cases that the AI has identified for them as being relevant? I don't think so, because you
Yeah.
still have to bring your brain and your reasoning and your strategic thinking to look at those 15 cases that the AI has identified as being relevant to your issue, and
Mhm.
then to work from there how those cases will help you and your client get to the outcome that they want. And I've been thinking about this for a very long time, obviously, and this is the conclusion that I've come to, that AI is not meant to replace the lawyer, it's just meant to help them do their job better and more efficiently.
Yeah. Uh-huh. And I like how you framed that, Lena, not as a rejection of tech, but more like recalibration of its role. And the AI can definitely help fetch the haystack, but maybe even spotlight the needle, but deciding what to stitch, that's still up to experts like you. And strategic thinking doesn't come pre-installed, not yet anyway.
No,
So
no.
now moving on, you've also worked on high stakes commercial and construction disputes, cases where legal nuance is layered and can get legally intricate. How can AI tools like My AI Law avoid compressing that complexity into a neat but maybe misleading summary?
So, because AI works on inferences and probabilities, it will hallucinate.
Uh-huh.
And so you can never be sure that it will not hallucinate. And you can put in guardrails to tell it that, it's not to return anything unless there is a verifiable evidence-based source for the proposition that is putting forward.
Mhm.
But you can never be 100% sure that the AI is not going to hallucinate, no matter what you do, simply because of the way the AI has been designed and developed, and the fact that the AI has been trained on every single document on the internet. And so even though for my AI, when we actually are getting it to run our research, we limit the databases that it can search. And we have our, own databases, and then the curated list of websites that it can go and look at are fixed. Just because of the way the AI has been developed, it can look at the materials that it has pulled back, but built into the way it's been trained, it can still draw inferences that may not be evidence-based. So as the developers, we can do what we can to tell it not to do that. I like to call it smacking the model and telling the model to stop doing that. But there's no guarantee that it's not going to do that, right? We can't,
Mhm.
because of the way the LLM
Design.
has been built and designed.
Mhm.
And so, as I said, everything is a draft and it's up to the lawyer. The lawyer has to check the work. So, for example, where we're testing a question on our model, and the question was, to what extent is subjective intention, parties' actual beliefs, relevant when you're interpreting a contract? And in Australia, the answer is no, it's not relevant, except in certain limited cases when there's been mutual mistake, etc. But but actually the answer is that it's not relevant. So I asked my model to do the deep research, and it returned all the relevant cases, and it said its objective intention, that it's relevant, etc. But
Mhm.
then it had one sentence, and it said, oh, it's a nuanced question, it's a nuanced answer. And then it said that subjective intention may be relevant. But then it referenced a case. At the moment, we haven't yet finished building all our pinpoint referencing. So when our model actually is released, every proposition is referenced to a pinpoint reference in the case. So you can easily check whether or not the AI is hallucinating or whether it's
Okay.
actually evidence-based, because all our answers are meant to be evidence-based.
Mm-hmm.
But it said that the issue was highly nuanced, but it's not nuanced at all. The answer is that it's not relevant because it's objective intention that's relevant, except for a limited scenario. But then, so I like to talk to my AI, I like to smack it a bit. And I asked it, why did it say that, right? Why did it say it was
Yeah.
nuanced? And
Uh-huh.
it said, oh, because we've been trained on everything on the internet, and there's been so many articles discussing the intersection between subjective intention and the relevance of subjective intention and objective intention that we've decided is a nuanced answer.
Uh-huh.
So because until I guess in other legal jurisdictions, subjective intention can be relevant. It's just not relevant in Australia in the common law
Okay.
interpretation of contracts. So the long answer to that is sometimes AI can say that an answer is nuanced or the issue is nuanced when actually it is not. And it's because of the way it's been trained. And
Yeah.
so it's very dangerous for
Mm-hmm.
any lawyer who is just trusting the AI 100% because
Mm-hmm.
everyone has to understand A, the AI is not there to replace you, it's just a machine.
Exactly. Mm-hmm.
And it's the lawyer who has to bring the judgment and the strategic thinking to it, and they have to check
Mm-hmm.
against the first principles as to whether what the AI is saying in its research report is actually the fact or fiction. And of course, we've made it easier because you can just click on the links and go to the exact reference. And I did that. I mean, I checked everything, and it is saying that. But obviously, we're in the process of smacking it to make sure it doesn't do it. But you can't guarantee, right? I mean, you can't
Right.
guarantee in every single question a researcher might put into the model that it won't
Mm-hmm.
do something like that.
Yeah, they'll misbehave still for sure.
Yes.
And AI,
So now my developers and I always say we just have to smack the model a bit more. Just keep smacking it. Yeah.
yeah. Well, AI can shortlist the relevant cases, as you mentioned earlier, but it's still the humans who read between the lines, catches the undercurrents, and separates interpretation from interpolation. And I remember from our previous podcast, Lena, my AI law has been clear. Accuracy and challenge over pleasing the user. But in a profession obsessed with speed, how do we resist the temptation to treat those fast AI summaries as gospel? Could convenience quietly reshape precedent, Lena?
There will always be lawyers who eventually will just trust the AI and not
Themselves?
check the work. There will always be lawyers like that.
Uh-huh.
But those are not the lawyers that you should trust.
Right. Of
Those
course.
those are sloppy lawyers.
AI
You,
lawyers.
no, they're sloppy because, it's the same as getting work output from your junior lawyers and your paralegals and not checking the work and then just putting it out to the client
Mm-hmm.
without verifying that the research is actually accurate.
Mm-hmm.
And, as a barrister, when I'm preparing for a case, ever so often there'll be a niggling thought that says to me, oh, you have to check that point or check that issue. And then if you don't, you can be guaranteed when you're in court, the judge will ask you about that one thing that you haven't followed through. And
Mm-hmm.
so when you're using AI, it has to be a thought in the back of your head.
Yeah.
Make sure you check the output, make sure you check the output. But if you don't check the output and you just use it without verification, then that's you being a sloppy and negligent lawyer.
Mm-hmm. Right. Makes sense. And because law is not about convenience, it's about consequences. And there's no
Yes, and you have
shortcut
to be
to good law.
careful.
Yeah, uh-huh. And Lena, this is where my inner philosopher gets curious. Can we actually encode ethical judgment into AI, or will ethics always live on the human side of the equation? Where does my AI law draw that line?
Well, ethics involve a set of rules. We've been taught,
Yeah.
there's all these case scenarios, and we've been taught there are a set of rules about what is ethical, what is not ethical.
Hmm.
And, human beings, I've noticed, have very variable, different people view ethics differently. You can be given a case scenario, and one lawyer might think is perfectly fine, and another lawyer may think, no, it's not something that the conduct is not ethical. But another lawyer might think it's fine. And then at the end of the day, I found that if the lawyer has is placed themselves in a position of a conflict of interest, then their view is often cannot be trusted. And that's why one of the rules of ethics is that a person mustn't put themselves in a conflict of interest. So
Mm-hmm.
I think you might actually find the situation where you run the scenario through the model, that the model might actually give you a good answer
Uh-huh.
that might actually nudge the practitioner along the right path.
Mm-hmm. Right.
If that practitioner is in a position of conflict. But at the end of the day, you always need human judgment to decide, because there are many scenarios where I don't know, where maybe the rules are not, it's not so clear cut as to whether you should or whether you shouldn't, or whether the situation is ethical or unethical.
Uh-huh.
Always it comes back to the machine and the human being have to work together.
Together. Mm-hmm. And I think that's the heart of it, Lena. AI can be trained on rules, as you mentioned, but not on conscience. And it can nudge, as you said, but it can feel the weight of a moral decision, say. And edge cases aren't just technical, they're human. And that's where the lawyer steps in, not out. That's why you said they have to work together, which totally makes sense. And last one, and this one's a biggie. When AI generated insights like those from My AI Law play a part in legal decisions, where does the chain of responsibility begin and end? Do you think we need new frameworks for what I'll call AI assisted accountability?
I think the theme of today's interview is that the human is the one who has to be ultimately responsible. And
Mm-hmm.
it's the human's questions and the human's prompts to the AI is what is most critical in generating the output that the human wants. But the human has to check the work. It's really 101. It's really weird how people seem to think that AI can replace human beings and then there's no longer any input. I use AI to draft agreements and I use it to help me draft things, but it can still take, I can get AI to help me prepare the draft, but it still takes me at least 4 or 5 hours to get the whole document ready, because AI, the ones I've used, never
Uh-huh.
generates a document that's ready for you to just copy and paste to
Mm-hmm.
use in final. And so I
Mm-hmm.
will get it to help me prepare the draft, and then I bring my knowledge to bear when I'm asking it to help me prepare certain types of clauses that I know should go into a particular type of agreement. And then it'll prepare the clause, but then I always have to amend it. It's never a copy and paste. And
Yeah.
so but it's helped me because obviously it gives me a framework. But then the initial framework that it provides and the final agreement that I end up using, you can't even really compare it. It's
Mm-hmm.
so different. But then I've been told by one of my advisors that he's coming across all these examples where people are just copying and pasting whatever AI is producing and not even bothering to amend. But that's a sloppy lawyer again. And you need so much of your own knowledge, or particularly when you're a barrister, so that you know what's gone wrong in all different types of cases. So you know what in particular types of contracts, what clauses have to go in there to protect your client. That I find it really funny that people think that an AI that's just been trained on everything on the internet
Mm-hmm.
can turn around and just completely replace you because it's got no strategic thinking. It hasn't been trained as a lawyer. It's just been
Mm-hmm.
trained to read everything on the internet.
That applies to actually every industry, I reckon, because it's not just the copy paste kind of thing, more so in law. And we're being clear here, AI can definitely carry the gavel. It's the lawyer who must own the verdict, no matter how advanced the tool or the AI. If the buck stops with you, so does accountability. And that's not a bug, that's a feature of justice, right? Mm.
Mhm.
And
But I don't understand why the lawyers think that all the experience that we have learned, that everything can be just somehow embedded into some generic AI model. There's currently no AI model, no language model that can replace a lawyer.
right,
The
and I
language
agree.
model is just one aspect of an overall AI model.
Mhm.
So my AI is not just, we haven't just taken a language model and then just run it through our database to search and summarize. That's not what we've done. It's a whole, we've put in my whole legal brain into it, and we've put in reasoning, ranking, we've done all kinds of stuff to make it behave like my brain. And you can tell that we've done something what I think is special, because when my developers developed the whole model for me, and before we put my brain into it, it's just behaving like a generic, the answers are not right, it's not reason. I mean, it's reasoning, but in their
Mhm.
own kind of way. And then we start putting in all my algorithms and all my things, and then it starts to behave more like a lawyer.
Yeah.
And it's giving out really amazing output, but you still have to check it. You can't
Yeah.
just say that's it.
And it sounds very complicated what you've been doing. So it's very
Yes.
exciting ahead for you. And Lena, every time you join us here, you drop clarity bombs on incredibly nuanced issues. And today was no exception. What a rich conversation again. Thank you so much for your candor, your insight, and for building tech that respects the weight of the work lawyers do. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks, Miles.
Thank you for being wonderful. From Skilling Dangers to algorithmic accountability, this was a masterclass on how to think critically about our tools while keeping our ethics firmly human. Efficiency is definitely no substitute for ethics, and speed doesn't outrun responsibility. So you got to learn more about My AI Law on how it can elevate your legal practice without compromising integrity. Go to myai.law because they've got tools and perspectives worth exploring. And to our wonderful X-Rays family, thank you for staying with us. Lena and I will see you in our fourth episode of this series. This has been your host, Miles. Stay focused and inspired with X-Rays.
Thanks, Miles.